one day this nation will rise up, live out the true meaning of its creed. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal. I have a dream that one day on the red hills of Georgia, the sons of former slaves and the sons of former slave owners will they be able to sit down together at the table of brotherhood. I have a dream that one day, even the state of Mississippi, a state sweltering with the heat of injustice, sweltering with the heat of oppression, be transformed into an oasis of freedom and justice. I have a dream. My four little children will one day live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. I have a dream today. I have a dream that one day, down in Alabama, with its vicious racists, with its governor having his lips dripping with the words of imposition and nullification, one day right there in Alabama, little black boys and black girls will be able to join hands with little white boys and white girls as sisters and brothers. I have a dream today. I have a dream that one day every valley shall be exalted. Every hill and mountain shall be made low, the rough places will be made plain, and the crooked places will be made straight, and the glory of the Lord shall be revealed, and all flesh shall see it together. This is our hope. This is the faith that I go back to the South with. With this faith, we will be able to hew out of the mountain of despair a stone of hope. With this faith, we will be able to transform the jangling discords of our nation into a beautiful symphony of brotherhood. With this faith, we will be able to work together, to pray together, to struggle together, to go to jail together, to stand up for freedom together, knowing that we will be free one day. This will be the day. This will be the day when all of God's children will be able to sing with new meaning, "My country tears of thee." Sweet land of liberty of thee I sing. Land where my fathers died, land of the pilgrim's pride. From every mountainside, let freedom ring, and if America is to be a great nation, this must become true. So let freedom ring from the prodigious hilltops of New Hampshire. Let freedom ring from the mighty mountains of New York. Let freedom ring from the heightening Alleghenies of Pennsylvania. Let freedom ring from the snow-capped Rockies of Colorado. Let freedom ring from the curvaceous slopes of California. But not only that, let freedom ring from Stone Mountain of Georgia. Let freedom ring from Lookout Mountain of Tennessee. Let freedom ring from every hill and molehill of Mississippi, from every mountainside. Let freedom ring, and when this happens, when we allow freedom ring, when we let it ring from every village and every hamlet, from every state and every city, we will be able to speed up that day when all of God's children, black men and white men,
most, if not all, were LGBTQ plus minorities, and yesterday marked 4 years since the tragedy. Thank you for that. I just want to tell everyone a little bit about myself and why I wanted to organize this event, and then I'll hand the mic off to one of our speakers so we can go ahead and get everything started. Basically, I sat down with my good friend Devin, who was one of the main organizers of this event about a week and a half ago, and I didn't even know where to go. Like, I felt like I had 1,000 emotions to process, no real clear vision, so we sat together and we talked for a couple of hours, and Devin helped me work through all of my thoughts and come to sort of a conclusion. I am a queer woman of color who passes as a straight white woman. Because of this, I have a privilege that tons of people in those same groups do not have. I'm treated differently, with more respect, more forgiveness, less fear, and less questioning, all because of how I look. Prior to sitting down with Devin, I posted on my social media asking if any protests or rallies were happening in Lakewood, and with little response, I sat and thought to myself, well, if no one's doing anything to speak up against this, if no one in our area is planning anything to get the community together, then why can't I? Who am I to just accept my privilege? Who am I to just accept my privilege and remain silent? Who am I to keep my mouth shut while the human beings that I identify so closely with are treated so unjustly? Who am I to preach on social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram about how we need voices and change and reform, all while sitting on my couch at home? The answer is no one, and that's why we're all here today. To gather as a community to help educate each other, to learn, to have an open discussion, and to communicate to our government officials the changes that we demand moving forward. The immense need for police reform, the need for psychiatric evaluations and racial bias profiling for police officers, bans against chokeholds, no-knock warrants, tampering with or removing body cams, and demanding consequences for using unnecessary force. We need change, and we will not be silent until we get it. Because what it comes down to is this. This isn't normal. The way black people are beaten, tortured, and murdered in the streets daily is not normal. This country is so used to the mistreatment and abuse of black humans that the people speaking against it are the ones that are perceived as the outliers. We need to acknowledge these injustices, demand change in the systems, and refuse to be silent until we are all equal.
People out here today. Hey, everybody. All right, well, I'm going to try to keep mine short and sweet and to the point. My name is Rhea. I am a licensed social worker out of Columbus, Ohio. So it's good to be here in Cleveland. Oh, Lakewood. In times like this, we are faced with a choice. A choice to be quiet and accept the status quo, or the choice to stand up and fight for equal rights, fight for the right to live. Many people will silence us because it inconveniences them. But who cares? Honestly, who cares? 2020. We as a country need to recognize that Black lives matter, that LGBT lives matter. It's 2020 and we are not just going to sit here and accept these injustices anymore. We're not going to let fear and threat silence us anymore. I'd like to share a quick poem with you guys called Our Greatest Fear. Our greatest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. It is our light, not our darkness, that most frightens us. We ask ourselves, who am I to be brilliant, gorgeous, talented, fabulous? Actually, who are we not to be? We're all children of God. Your plan small does not serve the world. There's nothing enlightened about shrinking so that other people won't feel insecure around you. We are born to make manifest of the glory that's within us. It's not just in some of us, it's in every single last person. And as we let our own light shine, we unconsciously give other people permission to do the same. As we are liberated from our own fear, our presence automatically liberates others. I want to thank everyone for coming out, and let us all make a choice to stand up for change.
Good afternoon. My name is Devin White, and I want to personally thank each and every one of you for being here today. With your support and your desire for change, we will be able to shape this into a more just and equitable world. Many of you do not know that I went to school right down the street at Taft Elementary, followed by my time at Emerson Middle School. My oldest brother graduated from Lakewood High School. Lakewood is in the foundation of my being. Many of you may not know the significance of this park. Though it is a very beautiful park, this park holds a special history amongst African Americans. This was one of the last stops on the Underground Railroad. After a long, hard journey north, where travel could only be held in silence and the cover of night, this was a beacon of hope for those who only wanted to be free. A beacon of hope that could be unlit had someone spotted a fleeing family and turned property back into the law. Since the abolishment of slavery, that hope has always remained throughout Jim Crow, segregation, the unbalanced war on drugs, and racial discrimination. Though our hope for a better world has always remained, we are constantly reminded that our hope can easily be distinguished by those who are hired to enforce the law. George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, Ahmaud Arbery, Eric Garner, Tamir Rice, Michael Brown, Botham Jean, Atiana Jefferson, Betty Jones are just a few names along the long history of those who can no longer hope. When I saw the videos of Ahmaud Arbery and George Floyd and heard the story of Breonna Taylor, I nor this country could continue to sit and watch hope be lost by those who can no longer take a breath. I helped plan a large protest in Columbus, some way to let the world know we have had enough. The days leading up to our protest, the U.S. saw the anger spill into a realm of violence with rioters and looters. Though looters can never be redeemed, the rioters exist out of a reality of not being taken seriously. When we kneeled, the world did not listen. When we rioted, we got the world's attention. By getting that attention, I noticed that the African American community was being criticized, called thugs, criminals, saying that our message has now no meaning because we got violent. But one community that I noticed that was against us was members of the LGBT community. And to that, I was deeply saddened and troubled. June is considered Pride Month because of the events that happened at Stonewall. For those of you who do not know, Stonewall Inn was a gay bar in New York City that was run by the mafia. The police would frequently harass and arrest members of the queer community just because they were queer. On June 28, 1969, a police raid was set to close Stonewall for good and to send a message that the LGBT community will no longer be tolerated. Did the queer community go silently into the night? No. They fought back, and the next several days of riots is what many consider the beginning of the gay liberation movement. Had it not been for Stormy DeLaverne, an African-American lesbian, shouting, "Why don't you guys do something?" that turned a silent crowd into an action crowd, we may not have a Pride Month. Had it not been for Marsha P. Johnson, a black trans activist, who threw the first rock at Stonewall, we may not have a Pride Month. We can celebrate this month because of the people who took a stand against police injustice, because of the work of the early activists of the LGBT community. We have marriage equality in a place where homosexuality was considered a mental disorder. I also stand in front of you 1 day and 4 years removed of one of the deadliest mass shootings in American history, Pulse nightclub in Orlando. 49 members of our LGBT community were killed in a safe space, celebrating the success of those that came before them. To all the people who have lost their lives to the senseless hatred that America has bred, I am sorry that you are no longer with us, and may you each rest in peace, where you can love who you want and where you can feel comfortable in the color of your skin. To the activists whose names routinely get forgotten amongst the pages of history, Marsha P. Johnson, Bayard Russell, Audre Lorde, thank you for allowing each and every one of us to benefit from your work, whether it was because we are a person of color or a member of our queer community. Today, our goal is to pick up the mantle of those that came before and continue to strive for equality amongst us all. To not acknowledge the failures of the police force would be dishonorable. To not become an activist for social justice would be un-American. And not be willing to say Black Lives Matter would be unhuman. Every person who we will have speaking in front of you today has a background and a history that we felt needed to be heard. Though not every speaker is an African American, to that I say this: African Americans did not create a racially biased system. African Americans did not perpetuate a system that harms us at astronomical rates. If we wish to bring about change, we need to work in tandem with the ones who created it and the ones who are serious about destroying it. Thank you all again for being here. Truly, at the bottom of my heart, thank you. Let us not let those that hope for a better society down. Let's be serious and deliberate about progress. Black Lives Matter and LGBT Lives Matter. Thank you.
All right, thank you, everyone. Can y'all hear me? Can y'all hear me? My name is Jamie. I'm a Black, non-binary, pansexual person. I got this poem for you. I'm a Black trans person with a death wish. In time, you will understand that as Black trans woman walking around, accepting yourself and engaging in hope unapologetically. You stroll accepting myself as you know. I'm a Black trans woman with a death wish. With that acceptance comes recklessness. Now let's unpack and check this. With your skin tone, you're perceived as dangerous and murderous. The darker the skin, the more hate than you know. Walking through a store, following you, scoping you, making sure you don't steal anything. Police pulling you over, DWB, driving while blackness go bump in the night. But I'm a Black trans woman with a death wish. The risk of wanting to live my life knowing that other Black folks hate me, has a distaste of me, wants to jump me, wants to shoot me, won't accept me, my identity, they take the right to disagree with questions people ask of me. What's between my legs? Why aren't you a man? Is it in your head? You're a Black man, why can't you accept it? It's just the media tearing up the masculinity of a Black man. You're a he, she, you need therapy. You need to be slapped with the Bible incessantly. Breaking me down to the point where suicide is what all I can see. Gender dysphoria is trauma they are invoking in me. But what they don't understand, what they can't comprehend, is to be Black and trans is the acceptance of a death wish, to have the audacity to live your life without the quality of peace you get when society deems you cis in sight. So I can say proudly, unapologetically, without a shadow of a doubt, ignoring the controversy, that this acceptance brings out that I am a Black trans woman with a death wish, because when I live my truth, being the living proof that my humanity, my power, my gumption shining through, I don't care who knows, I don't care if it shows, I don't care about your violent hope you know that I just came out just so you know that I'm a black trans woman with a death wish. And this is where I sue.
I haven't even started yet, you're clapping? Good afternoon. I wanted to thank Mariah and Devin for taking a chance on me, wherever Mariah is. Mariah, Devin, they get this goofy Facebook message from some person they don't even know. And so, thank you for allowing me to speak today. It is truly a blessing and an honor to be among you. My name is Chris Burns, and I was raised as a racist, and this is my story. I grew up in an all-white city with a racist, bigoted father. My truth growing up was that people of color were second-class citizens and didn't deserve the same rights that white people have. Anytime the race topic would come up in my house, the conversation would include many ugly, negative racial slurs, and I bought into it big time. I used to repeat those ignorant, hurtful things that I had learned growing up. I would say them about other humans that I'd never met before. Things like, the blacks who are alive today, they weren't slaves. Their parents weren't slaves. Why is this such a big deal? They aren't being directly affected by slavery. Slavery's been dead since 1865. Like I said, it was ignorant. I want to take a moment to mention my mother, who is a great person and a huge influence in my life, but she was always too scared for her safety to talk back or disagree with my father. Growing up, I was not the best student in school. I graduated high school with a 1.9 GPA. I attended Wright State University in Fairborn, Ohio. I attended there because they were the only school that would actually accept my application in my 1.9. Right? Yeah, that's who you're dealing with. In the fall of 1999, when I started attending at Wright State, I found myself surrounded by and immersed in social settings with people of color. Then the fraternity I rushed my freshman year had officer positions held by two of my black fraternity brothers. As I got to know these men, my heart began to soften and my mind began changing. These truths that I had learned, the truths that I had learned growing up were slowly being unfolded as lies at best. It was during the next few years when I realized that people of color have just as much value, possess just as much humanity, worth, and dignity as I did. But even then, as I grew from a racist to a non-racist, I never took it further until just recently, steps to educate myself on the true identity of racism in America. I hadn't realized how much my education system had failed in educating me on all of American history. Not just the appealing, pretty parts, but the ugly truths that landed on people of color throughout all of American history. My civil rights education in middle school and high school consisted of perhaps maybe watching an inspiring video of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. giving a speech, or possibly reading an article as a class but never discussing it, around his birth each year. The black history I was exposed to taught me that the 13th Amendment of the Constitution freed all the slaves, and then everyone lived happily ever after. Right? I hear somebody laugh. Me too. I stayed quiet and safe in my white cocoon of naivety. For the next 19 years, I would talk about human equality from the comfort of my white privilege, only when it was convenient for me, and always keeping a safe distance from the ugly truths that have always existed and still exist today. It wasn't until I watched that unbelievably horrible video 17 days ago that I felt called to move from non-racist to anti-racist. I began educating myself about how deep and how dark this evil extends. An interview I watched with Conan O'Brien and Van Jones led me to a documentary called 13th, and then a book, the 10th anniversary of a book called The New Jim Crow, and all the systemic racism woven through the fabric of our criminal justice system. In a way, I am thankful, not for the unjust, horrific murder of George Floyd, but for how the story of his death is waking people up, how it's waking me up. I feel frustrated, disappointed, and regretful in myself that it took me so much time and the death of a human being to wake up from my comfortable white privilege bed. I'm sorry. But I am energized nevertheless that it has happened. I was scared to death to come up to here today and speak in front of you. Part of me feels that the last thing that you need is to hear another white voice. But I need you to know that you have white allies. And I believe that you are gaining more white allies every day. And I promise you that I will use any platform I'm granted as a white male in America to get you more allies every chance I get. I've got your back because your lives matter. It has been a true honor and blessing to speak to you today. You have significant value and you are loved. Thank you. Give it up for him because he came out here and said something that's hard to say. Now, Chris, if it's fine with you, would you mind if I ask you a couple questions? Okay, so the first question, I'm going to pass the mic back and forth. The first question I'm going to ask you is, what do you believe is the difference between a racist, a non-racist, and an anti-racist? So full disclosure, Devin sent me these questions yesterday, so I had a chance to prepare. I'm really not as smart as what you may think. So, cat's out of the bag, Devin. Sorry, man. So, in its simplest form to me, a racist is someone who feels that their life holds more value than someone else's life. Or their belief that someone can't do something or be someone they want to be because of the color of their skin. I think the term racist is exercised in many different ways in our country, some more aggressively than others, some more obvious than others. I work in a retail environment, and I just want to tell you a quick story where I saw racism and anti-racism. It was frustrating and also gave me hope. I work in retail, and one of my stores in Dayton, this was about 2 weeks ago, so this is very recent. One evening, just a few weeks ago, I had 3 team members working in one of my Dayton, Ohio stores. 2 of the team members that night were black and 1 was white. That evening, a white customer came into the store. My female black team member greeted her warmly at the door the way she greets all of our customers. The customer walked straight past her, refusing to even make eye contact with her, give her the time of day.
The customer walked straight past my other black team member, straight up to the white team member, and started talking to him as if he was the only employee in the store. This is 100% absolutely a racist act. Did this customer say anything hurtful to my other two black team members? No. Were they going to do anything that offered harm or ill intent? Absolutely not, but that doesn't mean it's not racist. And it happens all the time. I would define non-racist as how I would describe myself between the ages of 21 to 39. I'm 39 right now. Non-racists have well-intended feelings in their hearts that all humans have equal value, and maybe they've done some research and education around racism and civil rights, but they've never gone out of their way to stand up for people of color. It's nice to change your Facebook frame to Black Lives Matter or post a black box on your Instagram timeline, and although those things are better than doing nothing and they do raise a little awareness, I don't feel like they have lasting change. Being anti-racist means making space for people of color in your heart, in your life, in your churches, in your work, and at your table. It means putting yourself out there and using your platform to speak out and love your neighbor no matter what color they are. It means walking through life with people of color in community as a family and part of your circle. It means lowering yourself so that someone else can be lifted up for a change. And just to reiterate the story I was telling earlier, a great example of anti-racism was when that same night from the same story, my white team member called that customer out on her behavior and asked her to leave the store because there's no room for that behavior. There's no room for it. I've never been more proud of one of my team members in my entire career than I was when that customer was called out for her racism. It was given a name and it was removed.
Thank you. I'm going to ask you two more questions. So the next question I have for you is, you mentioned something called the 13th Amendment. Why is that relevant today?
Thanks, Evan. I appreciate it. Let me find that question. Right? So, let's see where I was. I'm sorry, I'm lost here. Okay, I got it. We're good. Yeah. So I think the 13th Amendment is relevant. So the 13th Amendment, as you know, it states.
So who are these assholes?
It states that they're basically that there's no room for slavery in the United States unless you're a criminal in the criminal justice system.
Who are these
right?
guys?
Which is basically what's wrong with it.
You can tell me who they are?
I think.
I'm just asking who the fuck they are.
You know, I don't think the 13th Amendment obviously didn't
No, it's my part. I'm just asking who they are.
Of the black slave owners.
You know who they are?
If it had, I think the Jim Crow laws probably never would have existed, and that America would have been found.
I'm asking who they are.
America would have found a different way to rebuild the economy in the South than on the backs of these newly freed black slaves. For these reasons, I think the 13th Amendment still needs to be celebrated as a turning point in American history. Like, we can't just look at the 13th Amendment as a snapshot in American history and use it to say that racism is gone the way I was raised and I was educated, but rather celebrate it for what it is, and a platform for our black citizens, our LGBTQ citizens, our people who are involved in human trafficking rings all over the country, and look at it as a piece of a much larger puzzle and just keep fighting.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you so much for coming up here speaking today. Thank you for answering my random questions that he should not have gotten them. No. I'm sure you did. But no, thank you, because you are a true ally. You went up here and you made a statement about something that's uncomfortable, about the fact that we can be brought up racist, but it is on us to become anti-racist. Thank you, Chris. Give it up again for Chris. That was hard to do because we need to look at ourselves. What do we believe that is inherently wrong? Thanks again, Chris.
Hello, my name is Sherrod Brown. I own Elevation Training Center in Elyria, Ohio. I'm a youth leader in my community, mentor as well, and an activist. Before I begin, I would like to commend all of you for coming out today. This is a movement that has been long overdue, and the time now is for you to use your voice and to speak up about the violence and the suffering of black people that has been going on for many years. After I say these three individuals' names of recent that have suffered police brutality and that have had their lives taken from them, can we all offer up a moment of silence, please? I would like to say rest in power to George Floyd, rest in power to Breonna Taylor, and rest in power to Ahmaud Arbery. According to the National Archives passed by Congress on January 31st and ratified on December 6, 1865, the 13th Amendment abolished slavery in the United States. That, according to today, that was 155 years ago. And black people throughout this world have still felt like they've been in shackles. Why is it as a black man, when I drive in my car and I see a police officer and I've done nothing wrong, that I fear for my life? Why is it that I fear for my life when I leave my home and I wonder in my mind, will this be the last time that my friends and my family will ever see me again? I shouldn't have to worry about, if I decide to go for a run, that I'll be shot down and killed in the streets like an animal. Enough is enough. The time is now to do what is right. The time is now to use your power. The time is now to use your influence. Speak up. The time to be silent is over. The time to watch African Americans be oppressed because of the color of their skin is over. The time is now to break the cycle of injustice. The time is now to break the silence, the cycle of oppression that black people have been ridiculed and have been suffered, and the pain that they have suffered throughout the years. How would you feel if you were denied education due to the color of your skin? How would you feel if you didn't know if your son or daughter or your husband or the person that you love will make it home today? The change that the world needs now starts with you. You have to look at the man or woman in the mirror and do your part. Look in your heart and ask yourself, how can I be better? What is my role in all of this? We shall overcome. We have done this before, and we're not going back to how things have been in the past. Equality should be for all people, not just because you have a different skin complexion. Today, I unction you to choose love over hate. Today, use the power of your voice to stand up for what is right and what is just. I believe the time is now for black people to be liberated and uplifted. We have been rejected for too long, and by God's grace, it is our time to rise from the bottom to the top. Martin Luther King Jr.'s I Have a Dream speech was one of the most powerful speeches spoken in American history. But it's now time to make that dream a reality. Growing up, I can remember being criticized as a young black man of integrity and of good standing character. I was always told that, Sherrod, you act too white or you act like a white person. I was always told, Sherrod, you speak like a white person, because I didn't associate with things of a criminal nature and things outside of my upbringing. The measure of my character was not enough. It was always that I was acting like something that I never was. It was never I could be an upstanding citizen. It was never I could be an upstanding, educated black man of good character and of sound mind. And now I'm doing my part in my community by affecting change and empowering the lives of young people. I've built my own business and started my own training facility in Elyria, where I train and mentor a lot of the city's youth in Lorain County that are at risk. You are the change. What role are you doing to affect change in the city where you live, in the areas and the very areas that you live in? Are you playing a role, or are you just being silent and doing nothing? How are you using the authority that you have to make a difference? I say today, let's go forward and move in love. Let's move forward and looking out for one another and uplifting one another and continuing to aspire the best individuals we can be. If you want to make the world a better place, look deep within inside yourself and make the necessary changes. What I do matters, and what you do matters. If no one has ever told you, I stand up here today saying that you matter. I matter, you matter. Black lives matter.
Sherrod, thank you so much for coming up here. We currently live in Elyria, so we understand. Thank you for being a mentor to the community by practicing what you preach. Is it all right if I ask you a couple questions? See, y'all ain't supposed to laugh at that part. I'll take it. So the first question I'm going to ask you is, when you saw the video of George Floyd and Ahmaud Arbery, what went through your mind?
When I first saw those videos, I was very struck because, you know, as we live in a society and a world of social media, everything's on display. To have people sit back and record and not do anything while someone was murdered, it was very chilling and very breathtaking to watch those things be done. You know, I know a lot of things are sometimes out of our control, but we do have the authority and we do have the power to do what is right.
What does acting white mean to a person of color?
To a person of color, to say that to a black person or to a white person or someone else to say that to a black person, it's very, I would go as far as to say it's very disrespectful. Because in the eyes of the world, black people are always looked at as criminals, they're looked at as thugs, and when we try to accommodate and try to be upstanding citizens, it's never that we could be doing the right thing. It's never that we're striving to be the best people that we can. It's always we're doing something that's opposite that God didn't intend for us or God didn't create us to be.
The final question I'm going to ask is, why did you take on the role of mentoring the youth in Elyria? Technically, it's not your job. Why did you feel like you needed to do that?
The reason why I did that is because I felt like growing up in Lorain, you know, there's always, you know, this unction of Lorain is just this bad, criminalized city. You know, people in Lorain, they're never nothing. Kids grow up in Lorain and they just turn out to be, you know, criminals and all these other things. But I felt like it was my job. You know, why not me? Why not I start a training facility in Elyria where I bring in kids, at-risk kids in my city, you know, people that, you know, who lives I've tried to change and lives who I've tried to empower with wisdom and give them knowledge to be even better than I've been, you know, because if nobody else is going to do the things in my community, it has to start with me. So that's why I took the job to do it.
Thank you, Sherrod. Give it up for this young man. He is doing the hard work. He is out there trying to make a difference. What we're going to go ahead and do is we're going to take a 10-minute break. Quick reminder, water and snacks over here, voter registration over there, bathrooms way over there. So we'll be back in about 10. Thanks, y'all.
Yeah, that was crazy. Like the worst time ever. What did he say? Right? That was good. I love the fun of my friend. Can I take a picture of that? Yeah. Do you want to be in it?
Necessary pain is the ingredient for change. see the light. Got pulled over, see the brights. What you doing on the street at night? Wonder if they gonna read your rights. 13th Amendment, 3 strikes. Made a left when I should've made a right. Told God last time on life. Told the devil that I'm going on a strike. Told the devil when I see him on sight. I've been working for you my whole life. Told the devil that I'm going on a strike. I've been working for you my whole life. Nothing worse than a hypocrite. Change, he ain't really different. He ain't even try to get permission. Asked for advice and they dissed him. Said I'm finna do a gospel album. What have you been hearing from the Christians? They'll be the first one to judge me. Make it feel like nobody loved me. They'll be the first one to judge me. Feeling like nobody loved me. Told people God was my mission. What have you been hearing from the Christians? They'll be the first one to judge me. Make it feel like nobody loved me. Make you feel alone in the dark and you never see the light. Man, you never seeing home and you never see the domes. I can feel it when I write. Point of living in the right. If they only see the wrongs, never listen to the songs. Just to listen is a fight, but you whoop me for the fight. It's so hard to get along if they only see the slight from the love of religion. What have you been hearing from the Christians? They'll be the first one to judge me. Make it seem like nobody loved me. I'm not trying to lead you to visas, but if I try to lead you to Jesus, we get called halfway believers. Only halfway read Ephesians. Only if they knew what I knew of. I was never new till I knew of. True and living God, Yeshua. The true and living God.
Somebody pray for me. Hands on, hands on, hands on, hands on, hands on, hands on, hands on. I deserve all the criticism you get. If that's all the love you have, that's all you got. Just say I'm changed, you think I'm joking. To praise His name, yeah, that's what I'm smoking. Yes, I understand the urgency, yeah. But I have a request, just say don't throw me out. Lay your hands on me. Please, pray for me.
Hold myself on top. Hold it down. Hold it down.
Somebody pray for me.